It was a quiet afternoon. Well, your heart wasn't at ease, but you were trying. Suddenly, your phone burst on the coffee table. Its vibration cut through the eerie silence of your empty house. You glanced at the caller ID, an unknown number. Frowning, you answered, pressing the phone to your ear. Hello, Mrs. Y and Minho. This is Attorney Park from Kang and Associates. You hesitated, not really understanding why a lawyer is calling you. Yes, speaking. Is there something wrong? He cleared his throat before speaking again. I'm calling to inform you that your husband, Mr. Choi Minho, has filed for divorce. The documents are ready for your signature. Your heart dropped. The room tilted. For a moment, you forgot how to breathe. Divorce? What are you talking about? There must be some mistake. I'm afraid there's no mistake, ma'am. Mr. Minho hesitated. Irreconcilable differences. You should have received an official email by now. You pulled the phone away, frantically unlocking your laptop. There it is, an email with the subject divorce settlement. Your hands tremble as you clicked it open. This can't be happening. I understand this may be sudden, but Mr. Minho has already made arrangements. If you have any concerns, we can discuss them. Arrangements? You whispered slowly. Yes, he has offered you a financial settlement, but he has requested you move out of your shared home as soon as possible. Tears blurred your vision, your fingers tightened around the phone, your pulse echoed in your ears. He wants me gone? Your voice cracked. Mrs. Minho, I advise you to stay calm and I'll call you later. You choked out the words. You hung up, the phone slipped from your grasp, your knees buckled and you collapsed onto the floor, silent sobs shaking your frame. Not long after the sound of the front door unlocking jolted you back to reality, Minho stepped inside looking unbothered, dressed sharply in a suit. His eyes barely flickered to you as he sets down his briefcase. He looked at you emotionlessly. What happened to you? Why are you on the floor? Your hands clenched. You couldn't believe he was so unbothered after taking such a big step without considering you. Your marriage with Minho was an arranged one, decided by your families. Though you didn't love him at first, you were determined to make it work. You did everything a good wife should, supported him, sacrificed your own dreams, and tried to be the partner he needed. But no matter what you did, Minho never truly saw you. From the very beginning, he was distant, cold, and indifferent. He never showed affection, never asked about your feelings, and treated you like a burden rather than a wife. His words were sharp, his glances filled with disapproval, as if your presence in his life was an inconvenience. At first, you thought it was just an adjustment phase, that he needed time, but months passed, and then years, and nothing changed. The warmth you longed for never came. Instead, you endured silent dinners, lonely nights, and a love that never existed. He never held your hand unless it was for appearances. He never kissed you unless it was expected. And worst of all, he never looked at you the way a husband should look at his wife, with love. Eventually, you stopped trying. You became strangers living under the same roof. Your marriage nothing more than a contract binding two people who never should have been together. And now, after years of emotional neglect, he's finally ending it, not with regret, not with sadness, but with relief. And that's what hurts the most. You filed for divorce. Your voice was hoarse, laced with disbelief. He exhaled sharply as if annoyed that you brought it up so soon. So you got the papers. That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? It's over. You stood up, anger and heartbreak clashed inside you. Over? Just like that? After everything? Don't make this dramatic, Ryan. I'm tired. Tired of what? Me? Our marriage? He sighed, unbuttoning his cuffs. You are a useless wife, Ryan. Let's be honest. You don't work, you don't contribute. You looked at him stunned. I gave up everything for you. My career, my dreams. He laughed coldly. And what do I get in return? A wife who does nothing but exist? Do you even know what it's like to be with someone who inspires you? Who is she? His smile deepened, and that's when you know the truth stabs deeper than you imagined. Someone who actually has ambition, someone who makes me feel alive. Your first love? Yes, she came back, and I realized what I was missing. I won't apologize for choosing happiness. You clutch your chest, the pain unbearable. The man you once loved, the man you built your world around, is shattering it before your eyes. Then I hope she makes you happy, Minho, because I won't beg, I won't cry in front of you. You turned on your heel and was about to leave when Minho casually reached into his suit pocket and tossed an envelope onto the coffee table. You stared at it, then at him, confusion and disgust swirling inside you. You didn't really contributed anything in this marriage, but I'm still being generous. I've arranged an apartment for you and there's a good amount of money in there. Take it and leave quietly, he said calmly as if he didn't just break you apart. Your blood ran cold, your hands shook at your sides, fist clenched as you stared at the white envelope that holds the price of your humiliation. He thinks he can buy you off, erase you from his life with money, as if your pain, your sacrifices were nothing more than a financial transaction. You think you can just pay me to disappear? You finally spoke while your voice trembled. You were holding back your tears. He smirked slightly. I'm making it easy for you. Most women would be grateful. That was the final straw. Something inside you snapped. Without a second thought, you grabbed the envelope and hurled it back at him. The paper scattered across the floor. Keep your damn money, Minho. I don't need anything from you. His expression flickered for a moment, surprised by your reaction, but he quickly recovered, rolling his eyes. Don't be dramatic. You spoke, cutting him off. You disgust me. All these years I kept hoping that maybe, just maybe you would see me, but you never did, and now you want to get rid of me? Like I was some burden? Fine, I'll leave. But not because you paid me off, because I refused to stay in a place where I was never wanted. With that, you grabbed the signed divorce papers from the table and threw them at him before storming out of the house. No bags, no belongings, nothing. Just the shattered pieces of your heart and the cold, empty freedom ahead of you. The cold night air hit you as you stepped out of the house, but you barely felt it. Your hands were clenched into fists, nails digging into your palms as you walked fast, then faster until you were nearly running. Not because you were scared, not because you were in a hurry, but because the anger inside you was burning so fiercely that staying still felt unbearable. Your mind replayed everything: Minho's cold voice, his smirk, the way he had tossed that envelope at you like you were a burden he couldn't wait to get rid of, the way he had reduced your marriage to a transaction as if you were something to be paid off and discarded. It made you sick. You didn't cry, you refused to. The tears wouldn't come anyway. There was just this heavy, suffocating weight in your chest, an emptiness that swallowed you whole as you walked aimlessly through the city streets. Your feet ached, but you didn't stop. You had nowhere to go. You weren't going back to your parents. Not after Minho had poisoned that relationship too. And you sure as hell weren't going to beg him for anything. You would rather disappear than give him that satisfaction. At some point your legs gave up. The exhaustion, the cold, the weight of everything. Your body couldn't take it anymore. You found yourself at a deserted bus stop, sinking onto the metal bench. You stared at the road ahead, empty, just like you felt. You wanted to cry, but no tears came. You just sat there, hollow, lost. The sound of a car approaching barely registered in your numb mind. You didn't even look up until the tires screeched to a halt a few feet away. A door slammed, footsteps, then Ryan, your body tensed, that voice, familiar, warm, but laced with something unreadable. You slowly looked up, and there he was, Jungkook, the person you hadn't seen or spoken to in months, the person Minho had ripped away from you. His dark eyes scanned you, his jaw tightening at the sight of you sitting there like a ghost of yourself. His breathing was heavy, like he had run here himself. He took a step closer, then another, until he was right in front of you. What are you doing here? It's late, it's freezing. Why are you sitting here all alone? You looked at him, forcing a weak smile. Nothing, just sitting. His brows furrowed as he stepped closer. You could feel his eyes scanning you, taking in the disheveled state of your clothes, the absence of your purse, the way you were hugging yourself as if trying to hold yourself together. You are lying. You forced a weak chuckle. What else is new? He exhaled sharply, his patience was thinning. Why? Just tell me what happened. You shook your head. It doesn't matter. It does, he said firmly. You bit your lip, avoiding his gaze. He crouched in front of you, lowering himself to your level. His hands rested on his knees, his expression unreadable, but his voice was gentle, the kind of gentle that made your walls crack. Did he hurt you? Something inside you snapped at that question. Not because Minho ever physically hurt you, but because the damage he inflicted ran deeper than bruises or scars, and it's all still fresh, still bleeding, still raw. He left me. You finally said. Jungkook's jaw tightened. His fingers curled into fists. You let out a bitter laugh. Actually, no. He threw me away like I was nothing, like I was some burden he had to pay off just to get rid of me. His first love came. Now he's happy. He doesn't want me. Jungkook didn't say anything, but the way his whole body stiffened told you enough. His breathing was heavier, his expression dark. That jerk. You let out a shaky breath, staring at your hands. He said I didn't contribute anything to the marriage, that I was useless, that I did nothing but exist. Your voice wavered, but you hated. You hate how much those words got to you, how they carved into your soul like a wound that may never heal. You believe that? He said quietly, dangerous anger lacing his tone. You flinched at the intensity of his voice. He was looking at you now, really looking at you, like he was trying to find every single crack, every single place where Minho's words have poisoned you. I don't know. You said weakly, the silence between you stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then suddenly Jungkook moved. Before you could react, his hands cupped your face. His thumbs brushed against your cold cheeks. Ryan, look at me. You hesitated, but his voice, low, firm, desperate, left no room for refusal. Slowly you lifted your gaze, meeting his eyes, and that's when it happened. The dam broke. A sob rippled through you, raw and uncontainable. You didn't know why, didn't know how, but suddenly you were crying so hard your whole body shook. Your fingers clutched onto his sleeves as if holding onto him was the only thing keeping you from falling apart completely. I have nothing, Jungkook, no one, nowhere to go. His grip on you tightened, his own breath uneven. Then, without a second thought, he pulled you into his arms. The warmth of his embrace was overwhelming, safe, familiar, and that's what finally shattered you. Jungkook was your best friend, even more than that. He was secretly in love with you, but before he confessed, it was too late. Your father arranged your marriage to Minho, so he buried his feelings deep down. He never fell in love with anyone else because His heart always belonged to you, but now seeing you like this, his heart ached so bad. You have me, he said, whispering against your hair. You clutched onto him tighter, sobbing into his shoulder, and for the first time in what feels like forever, you didn't feel alone. Jungkook didn't let go, not even when your sobs quiet down into silent sniffles. He simply held you, one hand cradling the back of your head, the other wrapped around your waist as if shielding you from the world. After a while, he pulled back just enough to look at you, his voice softer now. Come with me. You blinked up at him, still dazed. Where? My place. You're not spending the night out here. You opened your mouth to protest, but he shook his head. Don't argue, Ryan, please. Just let me take care of you. You hesitated, but then you remembered. You had nowhere else to go, and Jungkook, he was still here. After everything, he was still here. So without another word, you nodded, and for the first time that night, you let someone take care of you. 2 years later. The rhythmic tapping of your pen against the desk filled the silent office. Sunlight poured in through the tall glass windows, illuminating the spacious room. Your nameplate sat proudly on your desk, Vian, CEO. It still feels surreal sometimes how much has changed, how much you have built. 2 years ago, you had nothing. Now, you have an empire. Your company, born from the ashes of your past, had become a phenomenon. The band you produced skyrocketed to fame within a year, topping charts and breaking records, but none of this would have been possible without him. The door swung open without a knock, and you didn't even have to look up to know who it was. You are working too hard again. A smile tugged at your lips as you finally glanced up. There he was, your biggest supporter, your constant. Jungkook leaned against the doorframe, hands tucked into the pockets of his fitted black pants, looking at you like you were the only thing that mattered. Someone has to make sure this company doesn't crash and burn, you said teasingly, and that someone is you. Obviously, but do you ever take breaks, Miss CEO? You rolled your eyes, but before you could respond, he strode over to your desk, plucking the pen from your hand and setting it aside. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking for. He pulled you up from your chair, effortlessly wrapping his arms around your waist. The familiar warmth of him seeped into your skin, and for a moment you let yourself melt into his embrace. You know I can't say no to you. He smirked. Exactly, that's why I take full advantage of it. You chuckled, resting your forehead against his chest. This was home. Not the office, not the success, but him. He was there when you had nothing, when you were broken and lost. He reminded you who you were, reminded you of your worth, and stood by you when no one else did. No one ever wanted me the way you do, Jungkook. No one ever loved me like you do. His grip on you tightened slightly as if he's trying to hold you even closer. That's because you were always mine to love. You pull back just enough to meet his eyes, and in that moment you know there is nowhere else you would rather be. No place, no success, no achievement could ever compare to the feeling of being in his arms, of being truly loved, and for the first time in years, you knew with absolute certainty you were exactly where you belong. The conference room was silent save for the ticking of the clock. You sat at the head of the long conference table reviewing the documents in front of you. Your assistant had informed you of a struggling company seeking financial assistance, and as CEO, you were always open to business discussions. But what you didn't expect was the man standing in front of you now, Minho. He looked nothing like the arrogant, dismissive man you once knew. His expensive suit hung loosely on him, his hair slightly unkempt, his eyes hollow with desperation, and the moment he looked up and saw you sitting there, his breath hitched. His expression was priceless. Shock, disbelief in something else, regret. Vian, he stammered. You tilted your head, feigning curiosity. Mr. Troy, please take a seat. He hesitated before slowly lowering himself into the chair across from you. You could see the way his hands trembled slightly, the way he swallowed hard as if trying to compose himself. I didn't realize this was your company. You smiled, and I didn't realize you would be coming to me for help. Life is full of surprises, isn't it? Minho flinched, shame flickering in his eyes. For the first time, the tables had turned, and you held all the power now. Fine, listen. I know I don't deserve it, but I need to say this. You leaned back in your chair, crossing your arms as you waited. He inhaled deeply, guilt and exhaustion weighing heavily on his face. I was wrong about everything. I was a fool to treat you the way I did, to belittle you, to think you weren't good enough, when all along I was the one who wasn't enough. You said nothing, letting him continue. His fingers clutched the edge of the table as if holding on for dear life. Nothing good has happened in my life since you left. My company collapsed. My so called friends abandoned me. And the woman I thought loved me, she walked out the moment I lost everything. Every single day, it's been one bad news after another. And every single day, I've regretted what I did to you. He swallowed, his voice breaking slightly. I'm so sorry, Vian, for all of it. I treated you like you were nothing when in reality you were everything, and I was too blind to see it. A bitter chuckle escaped your lips, and Minho flinched at the sound. Oh, and what is it that you regret, Minho? Do you regret losing me, or do you regret losing someone who could have stood by your side when you hit rock bottom? You said mockingly. No, it's not like that, he said desperately. I truly regret what I did to you. I swear it's not just about my downfall. I should have valued you, respected you, loved you the way you deserved. You let out a humorless laugh, shaking your head. Love? Minho, do you even know what love is? Because I didn't, not when I was with you, but now I do. Minho's face fell, dread sinking in as he realized what you were about to say. I found someone who stands beside me, not above me. A man who doesn't belittle me but lifts me higher. A man who loves me, cherishes me, and makes me feel what a true marriage should feel like. His eyes filled with despair, his hands clenching into fists. Ryan, you stood up adjusting your blazer, your expression unreadable. If you came here for help, I'll give you my answer. No, not because of what you did to me, but because I don't invest in failures. Minho sucked in a sharp breath as your words hit him harder than any business rejection ever could. You took one last glance at him, this broken version of the once arrogant man you had once called your husband, and turned away, walking out of the room without another word. Minho sat there frozen, realizing that for the first time in his life, he had truly lost.